Hey everyone, this is Scott Grant from Standfast Asset Management. I'm doing another sort of investment class today, talking about the magic of compounding, or the magic of compound interest. And one of the reasons I'm doing this series is to share information with you. And the reason I want to share is that people often say to me, Scott, we know you from your historical presentation and your show, but we don't know a lot about what you do as an investor. And I've been a professional investor for almost 4 decades. I've learned something. I'm going to share that with you today. Before we get to compounding, I want to talk about life expectancy. And as we know, life expectancy has risen over time. 100 years ago in 1920, life expectancy was 53 years of age at birth. Today, life expectancy 100 years later has increased to 79, which is a significant number. One of the things I want to point out is that in 1920 was one of the 3 times since the beginning of the Civil War where life expectancy declined. And it declined from 1915 until 1920, partially due to World War I, and partially, maybe more so, historians believe, because of the Spanish flu epidemic that swept through the country 100 years ago, killing 500,000 people. It's one of 3 times in our history since the Civil War where expectancy has decreased. The first time was during the Civil War. Not surprisingly, life expectancy at birth plummeted as 800,000 or so young men were killed in battle. The second time, 1920, and the third time, interestingly, was the last 5 years where life expectancy declined slightly from 2015 until today. But today, life expectancy is 79 years of age. Now, the other thing you need to know coming into this is the rule of 22. And the rule of 22 is really nifty. What the rule of 22 says is that if you take the number 72 and you divide it by the interest rate, your result will be the years it takes you to double. So for instance, and it doesn't work exactly for some of the smaller interest rates, but if you had an interest rate of 72%, you wouldn't quite double in a year. So, but for numbers closer to the middle, it works well. So suppose you had an 8% interest rate, and we're going to use 8% because the Securities and Exchange Commission likes 8%. They regulate my business. They think that's a good number to use. I do too. Stock market returns obviously vary, but over long periods of time, a balanced portfolio returning 8% is a reasonable expectation. Maybe a good time to drop the disclaimer that investments go down in value. They go up in value, but they also go down in value, and that your returns could vary, that there are no guarantees in a stock market investment. But for purposes of this example, we're going to use 8%, and we're going to say that your money doubles every 9 years. With a 79-year life expectancy, that means you have slightly more than 9 doubles in your lifetime. We're going to do 7 of those. Most of us don't start investing when we're in cradle. Maybe a grandfather gives money. Maybe a grandparent out there is thinking about giving some money to a child. Extra doubles help. So we're going to start with 1 poker chip, and we're going to say this poker chip's worth $1,000. So that's our initial investment, $1,000. We got our first double to $2,000. Thank you, Alexander. This is my assistant, Alexander. He's going to be helping stack the chips for me. Second double takes us from $2,000 to $4,000. The third double takes us from $4,000 to $8,000. Starting to get interesting. The fourth double takes us from $18,000 to $16,000. All right, double number 5. So we're going from 16, stacking up some poker chips here, to 32,000. So you're going to start setting out the 6th double. Xander's already working on the 6th double, which is going to take us to 64,000. And all from this initial investment, And you can see that each double gets more significant. In fact, at this point, once Xander finishes the stack of 64, there are more chips in this stack than on the rest of the table combined. And now we'll go to double number 6. And that's 126,000. I think I'm probably going to need to help Xander. We've done this a couple times practicing. Each double is more significant. And by the way, one of the things that I like to talk about is that Warren Buffett, who's one of the richest men in the world, worth 60, 70 billion, something like that, he made 95% of his money after turning the age of 65. And it's often used as an example of, your life's not over at 65. Look at this, Warren Buffett. But what it's really an example of is the magic of compounding. So let's see if we can get to this up to 126,000. You got it, Xander?
Yeah, it's all right. Just hold on. Let me just figure out how to keep this from falling. This is going to fall.
Keep going.
This thing's going to
You're
fall.
No.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not as sturdy as in practice.
It wasn't as sturdy as we did it earlier. We made this work earlier.
Yeah, because I had a better. Because I held it different than I am now.
Keep holding it.
And there's more.
Yeah, I know.
There's still more. By the way, if you get this far into your life, where you've made the 7th double, and you've made it to 79 years old, guess what? Your life expectancy increases as you get older, so you've actually earned yourself another double, which would take us to 256. And I'm not sure we even have that many poker chips. But I do know this. I looked up on the internet today, and of course, not everything you read on the internet is true, but on the internet it says that the record for stacking casino poker chips, the Guinness Book of World Record, is 240 chips. So if we built an 8th double in here, that'd take us to 256, and we would set, if we could make it stand on its own, a Guinness Book of World Records for stacking the most poker chips. Obviously, over time, these numbers keep going up. One of the things that you often like to talk about is that there are certain entities that don't die. Humans have a life expectancy. A lot of people live to 100 these days, but nobody lives to 200. Corporations have a long life expectancy. The church, Catholic Church in particular, accumulated wealth over centuries. And one of the things I always like to say is, in any Dracula movie that you ever watch, Dracula is always rich. And why is Dracula always rich? Because he lives forever. So there we go. $1,000 turned into $128,000 in a single lifetime through the magic of compounding. So I want to give a final disclaimer. Again, investment returns vary. People can and do lose money. None of this is guaranteed. It is meant as an example, partially for entertainment purposes and partially for educational purposes. I think we had a couple questions that people sent in. I want to get to those. We had a couple people send in questions based on the last show. And question number 1 comes from Judy Cahill of Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. And Judy wants to know, do I have to take my required minimum distribution from my IRA this year? And hey, that's a great question. And the answer is no, you don't. The CARES Act, which was passed in February to deal with the coronavirus epidemic, one of the features of that law was that they waived the required minimum distribution requirement for this year. So if you have an IRA, you're over 70 and a half, you do not have to take a distribution. The next question comes from one of my favorite people, Julie Shilbrock from Jacksonville Beach. And Julie wants to know, Tesla or Amazon? And that's an interesting question. We own Amazon. I personally own Amazon. My family owns Amazon, and our clients own Amazon. So I like that company. I don't personally own Tesla, and Elon Musk himself says that he thinks the company's overvalued. Having said that, I don't know. Tesla keeps going up, and it may continue to keep going up. It's not the kind of stock I normally buy. In fact, neither is Amazon. I usually like companies that pay a dividend. Amazon is one of the few exceptions in our portfolios. And time for another disclaimer. I own Amazon. My family owns Amazon. Our clients own Amazon. Some of our clients actually own some Tesla. I don't personally own Tesla, but I may buy or sell Amazon or Tesla for myself, for my family, or for our clients who trust us at any time without notice. If you like what we did today, follow us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Instagram. Send us a note. Let us know what you think. Until next week, this is Scott Grant from Standfast Asset Management with my assistant Alexander, wishing you all the success in the world.